as Seventh-day Adventists and as Christians, we want to reach people and want to tell people about Christ. And I feel like art is a great way to do it.
It was always a bit of a struggle for us when we were younger because, there's that old joke. If you're an Adventist, there are 3 acceptable career paths: teacher, pastor, and doctor.
Whenever the subject of art makes people feel uncomfortable, there's always going to be some reaction against it.
I'm a pastor's kid, and as a pastor's daughter, it is really hard for us to just grow up in that whole environment of pressure that you usually get from the church or from people around you just because you're the pastor's kid and how people put you in this pedestal. But for me it's kind of different because my father, he's really famous in Brazil. Pretty much my whole family is well known in the Adventist world. I was the first one in my family to actually tell everyone's hey, I want to be a filmmaker. And they all freaked out, but I understand where they were coming from. What would people think and why do you want to go with this? What do you mean you want to be a filmmaker? And it took a lot of timing and me explaining it to them what my goals were.
There's still a stigma that goes along with film, in particular with Adventists. I have felt it from church members as I was growing up. Oh, you're a pastor's son. That means you're going to be a pastor too, right? Well, no, I want to work in film. What? How could you want to work in film? Hollywood's so this, that, then the other, and...
The real danger for me is that we think that there are some things that are off limits, some things that are too ugly or not appropriate to explore in art. For me, art is the medium by which we explore the world in which we live. We explore the beauty of the world and we also explore the darker sides of the world, and I think all of that is very appropriate for art.
I don't think that there's a problem inherently with art or artists. I think that those are gifts that God has given. They are among the spiritual gifts. They may not be explicitly listed in the Bible per se, but God gives all kinds of gifts according to the grace given us. That is something that is in Scripture. God gives us gifts and talents to bring Him glory and to connect others with Him. I think the powerful thing about art and media is that they are able to communicate things to people in ways that words can't.
Ellen White wrote about how you shouldn't go into movie theaters. Granted, at the time, movie theaters were completely different and consisted of quite a few movies involving young women who would be naked and jumping up and down or something of those likes, and they were considered scientific and educational. But, and the movie landscape has changed. But at the same time, there's this very large concern within more conservative Adventists of, to steal a term from Fox, creeping secularism, which is that if we allow our kids to go to too many movies, they're going to become overly secularized and then leave the church. So due to those 2 stigmas in particular, it is very hard being a filmmaker and an Adventist at the same time.
By my experience, I could totally see how it's really difficult for a lot of people in the Christian world and the Adventist world to actually put art with Christianity together. I feel like a lot of them wouldn't get it, but I feel like it's possible to just kind of walk them into that, that new, thing that's going on. I believe it's possible for you to be an artist and also be a Christian, and you can totally incorporate both.
I don't see film separate from Adventism because a very large part of the way I identify myself is as an Adventist. Art, any kind of art, is affected by the worldviews of the artist. I personally believe that art is an expression of the way the artist views the world. That being the case, it would be impossible for me to leave my Adventism at home when I go to make movies.
Well, I think the answer to the question, how does media benefit Adventists, is the same answer to the question, how does media benefit anybody? And I think it plays an integral and growing role in all of our lives.
And something like art and media, I think, can bring us all to the table and help us share a common experience. I think that that's a really powerful way to connect people to God.
Part of the way you reach people is through high quality work. A lot of times when you see something cheesy, you just look at it and say, man, whatever, You don't really have their attention. I wish the Adventist world would pursue the quality, the level of quality that the secular world has achieved. And I wish you could see an Adventist documentary or an Adventist movie, if we could produce films and put them out there. people say, wow, how do they do that? But also, the Adventist message is there. Because when you make an impact visually, people get emotional about that, and in that emotional state, their mind is open. You think you could reach them.
I think that what Jesus told us to do as Christians is actually to communicate. He gave us the Great Commission to go out and tell other people about the good news of His coming, His death, His resurrection. And in this day and age, there's no better way to do that than to incorporate Scripture into different kinds of media and even artwork.
Good art troubles the comfortable and comforts the troubled.